Alright, what's up, Anders? I wasn't around for your birthday, so here's your gift now. Today in the kitchen, we're going to be talking the secret of the onions. Alright, let's talk ingredients here. We're going to start out with some red onions. You can use white or yellow if you want, but I find that red works better for kind of like Latin style dishes a little better. Remember, you're going to be wanting more than you think. These are going to reduce down to almost nothing, so 3 onions is going to cook down to a very small amount. Alright, for our frying, we're going to use a mix of high heat oil and some butter. I think you could probably use one or the other, but I find that butter gives it some better flavor, while the oil that you mix in gives it a higher smoke point, so you're not going to be risking burning, because we're going to be cooking for a long while. Now, as we move along through this, we're going to be adding some salt and some sugar. And then for our final deglaze, we got some black pepper, honey, chipotle pepper in adobo sauce, and some limes. Alright, now, I assume you know how to get to this point. You're a man of culture, you've cut an onion before. For these onions, I like to cut them in some really thin julienne ribbons. You can dice them up, they'll cook down the same, but just for the texture, the ribbons work well for me. So, get started on there. So we got our burner, kind of medium-high heat. Got some butter in here. A little bit of our oil in there. Just a nice mix. We got our fat good and hot here. Got my onions. Get those all in there. And like I say, this looks like a lot, but by the end this is going to cook down, so don't worry if your pan isn't quite big enough. We're gonna mix these up. I think I'm going to need both hands to get these all coated, but the next step is just to make sure everything is coated in oil and butter. Alright, so you see that, how we got that nice boil going? All that water from the onions is just starting to cook out. So, still not turning it, still not flipping any of the onions. I'm just going to take a chance to turn the heat down on the oven just a little bit. Down to a little lower so we can get that low, slow cook. This is not a fast process, but it'll taste better that way. While the onions are cooking, I'm going to take a second to just make up our glaze for the very end of the process. We got our honey, our limes, our adobo pepper, our black pepper, and you can make this up at any point. We're not going to need it for a while. So, here. Got some adobo pepper, or chipotle pepper in adobo sauce. Hit it with that. Get some black pepper in there. Juice several of these limes. And hit it with a little shot of honey. This here is kind of what we're looking for. Got some little chunkies in there, a lot of lime juice. You can adjust it to your taste, This is going to be a big, strong flavor, so when you just taste it plain, it's going to be really strong, but the onions are going to absorb it. It's going to kind of mellow out, so don't be afraid to go big. So, let's give this a little check here. Oh, yeah, look at that. See how we're starting to get some brown there? All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a total flip of the onions. Right? With 2 hands. So it turns out that camera angles and getting them is really confusing. But, as you can see here, we're getting some nice browning on these onions. Alright? They're cooking down. I did that first flip, and we're just going to let that go again. We're going to wait until it browns again. No need to touch it. In fact, especially don't. It'll taste better if you just let it caramelize, okay? So, we're letting it sit till the next round. I gave it a look. We're ready for our second flip. But before we do that, what I like to do is add in my sugar. Sugar before the second flip. So I'm going to take a good hefty pinch. Just get that in there. Yeah. This gives a little sweetness, obviously, but helps it caramelize down even further. Gives it a nice kind of crackly candy aspect to it. Really brings the flavors out. So I'm going to mix this in, and then I'm going to let it sit again, and we're just in that. We see it's really cooking down, we're getting some brown, but we're just gonna wait till it's browning again, flip it, wait till it browns again. The time in between those rounds decreases, okay? But that's what we're in until the very end, all right? So get ready, buckle up. That's what we're working with now. We see how much it's reduced. It's getting real brown, candy. All right, now here we're in the final stretch, but it's really easy to start letting them burn at this point. I've gone through several rotations. I try to stay on top of it, do little spot checks to see if it's getting too brown or even burning a little on the bottom, and I make sure to flip it again. At this point, you're going to be flipping it several times, okay? So keep an eye on it, and we're going to just give this a little longer before we give it that deglaze. All right, so I'm going to call that done. Nice and crispy, getting nice and caramelized, kind of chewy onions. That's right what we're looking for. Almost all the water is gone. At this point, if we let it just keep going, it's just going to burn them. It's just going to turn them into char. Okay, so here I've got my glaze. Pour that in there. Turn up the heat here. And give that a stir. So now, I'm just going to let all the liquid in that cook off and let the onions soak up all that lime, honey, chili, pepper, and then we'll be good to go. All right, so I kicked up the heat to get that cooking off pretty quick. Stay with it, keep it moving. You're gonna find that it starts to get real sticky, all the sugar and the honey and the chili and everything like that. So again, there's the potential to burn it at this point, so keep it moving and you follow your nose. You'll smell it when it's ready. So I'll cut the heat there, and we're just gonna let these cool off in the pan. They're gonna continue to do a little cooking. They're gonna thicken up and be ready to put in whatever dish or just as a topping. So that's the onions. Like I say, that kind of works for like a Latin style dish. You know, you got the lime juice, you got the chili, you got the honey and stuff. But you can adapt the recipe. Let's say you're making a pot pie, right? Instead of the lime juice, let's talk some apple cider vinegar. You can still use the black pepper, the honey, maybe keep the chili out of it. Likewise, if you wanted to kind of make like a Asian dish, you know, replace the honey with hoisin sauce. You can hit it with some teriyaki at the end, something like that. Whatever you're gonna do, the onions are gonna soak up all that flavor right at the end, and just give whatever you're making a real pop. It can be a real nice base concentrated flavor that you're gonna dilute with something a little bit more, I don't know, bland. Remember how I added it with sweet potatoes, for example, okay? So you can adapt it to any other style. You can use yellow onions, you can use white onions, but use that same basic format, something acidic, and then you know, something thick. Keep the sugar in there to help the caramelization. If you end up going to that hoisin sauce teriyaki route, don't forget that that's a lot of salt, so maybe don't add so much in the beginning. And anyway, go out there, cook some tasty food, and have some fun. Happy birthday, fella.